Yeah, alright. No cheeky intros this time. I'm just gonna come right out and say that I enjoyed this movie about as much as a colonoscopy. I know, them strong words, especially for a film that everyone seemed to think was pretty okay, but this was the most miserable cinematic experience I have had since The Matrix Resuscitations. I will say it's not quite as bad as that. It didn't make me physically nauseous, but man, oh man, except for the effects, this was stupid, lazy, awful cinema, cynically constructed to appeal to the least common denominator of moviegoer. It was just so transparent, and I hated every molecule of it. Problem number 1, the plot. It barely exists. It's been like 10 or 20 years or something since those dastardly humans and their flying machines were punted off Pandora and had to go back to their own shitbox of a planet. During that time, our jarhead hero Jake Sully has been getting busy blasting Zoe Saldana's big blue holes, and they had a bunch of annoying children who call everyone bro. Unbeknownst to them, the big bad generic military guy from the first movie is reincarnated as an avatar, because apparently they can just do that now. I guess the screenwriters decided it would be too hard to explain how a ceremony that could previously only be conducted between living bodies with the spirit of the earth as intermediary can now be carried out from beyond the grave, in space, by humans. I guess from like an uploaded consciousness, which brings about a whole other host of questions, but do yourself a favor and don't even bother thinking about it. This is just the first exercise of many in this bloated monstrosity that shows that logic or satisfactory explanations have no place in this script. It's designed purely to get everyone from point A to point B regardless of if it makes sense. The other inconsistency I could never get past plot-wise was the purpose of Macho McCheese and his camo douche brigade. They're created as some sort of insurgency force for the recapture of Pandora and subjugation of the local population, but are seemingly able to forget about all of that and commandeer endless resources for a strategically useless vendetta mission. Wow, what are the odds that their very first foray onto Pandora would lead them right to Jake Sully's little semen demons? What a crazy coincidence! The other weird part of this is that Sully immediately decides, for no reason at all and with minimal information, that the avatars will never stop hunting him or his family. I guess maybe he read the script? I suppose you could make the argument that killing the Na'vi who spearheaded the previous revolution would make some sort of statement, but nobody seems to know who he is, so whatever. I won't tackle any more of these. I feel like kind of a dumb asshole putting more effort into analyzing the details than James Cameron and his cronies did writing it, and also because this is pretty minor in the grand scheme of criticism. We have got bigger fish to fry. The second problem is an even larger one: the characters. I briefly mentioned Sully and Zoe Saldana's Blue Brood, but I did not like any of them, except maybe the littlest one. She was cute. Sully still talks like a chump marine who would struggle giving a book report on green eggs and ham. Neytiri's personality is comprised of, motherliness, and the kids are embarrassing renditions of the worst kind of generic humans. I believe I've used the word douche several times by now in different contexts, but it merits a reprisal here. All of their dialogue is painfully douchey, and the attempts at comedy ruthlessly unfunny. Remember that moment when the kid says his hand can do something cool when he balls it into a fist, and then he punches the other kid? Yeah, and they're not even the worst offenders by a long shot. What about Corporal Chungus? Actually, this is a good time to bring up the first movie, which, believe it or not, I don't hate. I rewatched it again recently, and I think it's fine. It's well constructed, unlike this one, but it's dragged down by the way it handles the cheap manipulation of the audience. The humans are the bad guys, and the Na'vi are good, with no dimension in between. It's about as subtle as Sesame Street. This is personified in the character of Major Hardon, who I hated the first time around. His presence was the worst thing in the movie. So one of the positives going into this one was, hey, they probably have a different villain. I groaned so loudly when he was reintroduced that I'm a little worried the neighbors thought I was having some sort of sad, excruciating wank. I just knew at that moment that any hopes I had for subtlety were dashed against the rocks. Oh, James Cameron, you have gone too far this time. But wait, it gets worse. I genuinely thought that no character could be more hatefully simplistic than Captain Buzzcut, but then we meet the Australian boat captain. Just in case your brain matter is comprised entirely of hot dog juice and didn't get it yet, he's there to remind you again and again and again that humans are bad. Every single line of dialogue this guy spouts is impossibly generic bad guy sludge. He likes to murder nature and also likes money. Man, what an interesting and thought-provoking contrast to the peaceful natives of Pandora. Now I know who I'm rooting for. Thanks, James Cameron. One final character needs to be mentioned because it's one of the most bizarre elements of the film. Sigourney Weaver's avatar apparently gave birth after death to a little Na'vi gal, which is already pretty weird, but they then thought it was a good idea for Sigourney herself to do the voice, and it is laughable. It's clearly not the voice of a teenager, it just sounds like Sigourney Weaver doing an upward inflection, and I laughed every time she talked. Moving on to the feel of Avatar 2, which is sort of a conglomeration of all the things we've talked about so far. This is basically one step above a Michael Bay movie. It's not quite as brutally annoying as that, but it is close. The shallow characters, infantile attempts at humor, tragically bad dialogue all around, looseness of plot elements that just feel strung together to get to the action scenes, all contribute to a tone that I would describe as annoying. It was an annoying movie. And then we have the pretentious elements layered on top, like old mayonnaise topping a shit cake. Now, I know the word pretentious is not usually associated with movies like this, but with more artistic, personal, and complex films, usually as a derogatory. So why am I applying it to broad entertainment aimed at simpletons? Well, it's because one of the most infuriating elements here is the pseudo-spiritual undertones, with "we will all return to the sea" and lines of that nature. Don't be fooled. This is like baby's first Terrence Malick without any understanding of why his films work, and the only reason they spout this gibberish is to give you the illusion that the movie is about something. I mean, come on, what is this movie about? There's no character arcs, nobody seems to learn anything, there's no interesting symbolism. What's it about? And I swear to fucking God, if you say family, I will send the ghost of Hunter Thompson to extract your adrenal gland so I can get wasted on adrenochrome and forget I ever watched this depressing schlock. And it is depressing, after all is said and done. You might be wondering why I'm even bothering to analyze a movie like Avatar 2 to this degree, giving it such a bloody vivisection on my operating table. Well, first of all, you're clearly not familiar with this channel. Not that I can blame you, but hi, welcome. And second of all, it's because James Cameron was one of the greats. Terminator 2, Aliens, The Abyss. His movies have meant so much to me over the years, and his presence as a director and storyteller is inextricable from my love of cinema. These movies had great stories and characters, and even if they weren't the deepest, they were perfectly calculated when it comes to Cameron's greatest gift, manipulating an audience. Like it or not, he's become a genius at this. He knows what sells, and he knows how to make it feel genuine, even if it's not. I'm not saying he was always like this. I think his earlier movies, The Abyss in particular, felt more personal. But Titanic started to really ride the line of pandering to general audiences, and Avatar took that simplistic pandering to a whole new level. Avatar: The Way of Water, then, is almost the natural evolution of the formula. It's all the worst elements of James Cameron with none of the good. Nothing in this movie felt genuine to me, I can't say it enough. The supposed magic was as hollow as modern Disney, and all the requisite emotional scenes and obligatory welling movie music were like the cinematic equivalent of McDonald's. Just chemicals designed to taste like the real thing. It's pathetic and manipulative and poorly constructed, and I hated it. Why couldn't it at least have had a decent story structure and some character payoffs? I don't understand how bad it is. It's hurting my brain. James Cameron, what happened to you? With all the care and love that obviously went into the world design, we couldn't just get a decent script? I know it's not easy, but compared to the millions and millions of man-hours that went into this production, a couple rewrites by somebody with like a voice and a soul maybe would not have gone amiss? It was hard to even appreciate the wonder of Pandora. I guess it was pretty, but man, I have to say I really don't give a fuck about that if there's no substance. The whole shut your brain off and enjoy thing only works for me if it doesn't feel cynical, and Avatar 2 was clearly just a weird product. This isn't a story anyone wanted to tell. It was produced to appeal to as many people as possible so that James could stroke his movie-making ego and bank more millions, and that's it. That's your movie, folks. That's Avatar 2, The Way of Water. I closed my eyes during most of the last act. It was all sound and CGI, signifying nothing. Thanks for watching, and get out of my theater. The crew and I are gonna check out Asteroid City. I'm excited for this one. I do like me some Wes Anderson. So that's up next. Gotta cleanse our palate of this nonsense. Peace, love, and hand grenades. Catch you all in the next one.